So, step one in the modify the breech process, the brass breech process for the KTHPA, was cutting it down to the length I needed so that the front portion of the breech would not be sitting on the raised areas that I've already covered in other videos, but this was the overall length. Basically, match this up bottom and top wise with the first breech that completely cracked out. And then take a hacksaw and put it on its side and just start cutting. And it took a while, and what the process led to was an overall finish on the end. I'm going to show you the cutoff end because that's got the sawed finish, which this other piece had as well, but I was able to belt sand the end and then buff out the edges all around. For a nice, smooth, even, burr-free finish. Took a scraper and went around the ID at the front of the breech. So that was step one. Step two will be attempting to drill and tap a second barrel clamping hole up here for a 632 grub screw. So I'll be getting to that. So the first step that I take in going about drilling and tapping for that 632 grub screw to act as a second barrel clamp, I use a center drill. And by center drill, this is what I'm referring to. 2 flutes. It's got a smaller point tip to it. If you want, you can go all the way in and start your hole and use the flared out portion down here to chamfer the top of your hole. This is the only one I have on hand with me down here in my basement. It's larger than I would like to use, and basically I'm just going to use the tip of this, or have used the tip of this, to start what you might go about on a different metal using a center punch for. But with the tip of that center drill, I've started an indentation in the middle of the breech right there. So now I'm going to go drill through with a smaller drill than I need. For eventually, I'll work up to the drill that is needed for the minor diameter of a 632 thread. I did find a smaller center drill. They come in various sizes. This one is smaller than the one I just used for that indentation, but just an example of what's out there. So I took my time, started with that center drill, went through with a small, I want to say probably 095 drill. Then went through with the call out for the minor diameter of a 632 tap. But one of the things that I always do when I buy a tap at my local Ace Hardware, they don't have them that come in a set. But as you can see, there's a drill and a tap in here. I've Googled and looked up the minor diameter of a 632 thread and purchased the drill that is the equivalent of that. And when I do that, I always keep them together at that point. I don't throw the drill back in with my other drill sets. I keep it with the tap. And I have various taps with the matching drill for the minor diameter kept together, whether it's a 632 or an 832 or a 1032 tap. But I went through with a smaller drill, then the minor diameter drill, and then, because brass can be very hard to get started as far as threading with the tap, I actually used, on a very low speed, I chucked up the 632 tap in my cordless drill, and very slowly, with even pressure and keeping it as straight as possible, got the first couple of threads started with my cordless drill. Screwed out the tap. It was only in there a couple of threads, and it is tapered at the end as well. It has a lead on it. Took the tap out of my cordless drill, put it back in my tap handle, and hand threaded it all the way through. And it did go through nice and straight. And if you're wondering, Steve, how did you get that centered? To be quite honest, I just eyeballed it. That's one of the things when you use the center drill. It's sharper than most drills. And that tip cuts pretty good if it's kept in good condition. And really, I just eyeballed it. I could have measured across the top of the dovetail here with my calipers and divided by 2, clamped down my calipers to that dimension, kind of came over from one edge of the dovetail with the point of the calipers, kind of scratched a mark into this as my center line. That's one thing you could do. Like I said, I just eyeballed it, and it came out pretty well centered. So now I have masked off the areas what I'm going to do, the next step is, and I did use my wooden dowel for drilling and tapping through, so I didn't go damaging the side across from where it was breaking through. But I'm going to be using this Rust-Oleum self-etching primer. Very light coats. And then I believe I'm going to paint this a flat black. But the areas that I don't want to get paint in, the bolt area, the pellet tray area, and the front of the breech where the barrel is going to be going into, I also want to keep everything off of the surface that makes contact with the hammer tube. But I'm just going to lay this down flat and get in with the primer from the sides and from the top, and whatever it gets to, it gets to. But hopefully that will keep everything off of this surface here. Lay it down on top of a cardboard box and go about priming it and painting it in that manner, okay? So that's what I'll be doing. So the next step in the brass breech for the KT HPA process was, as I explained before, priming it. I used this Rust-Oleum self-etching primer. Definitely with brass, you need some type of prep. You don't just want to paint it. It's not going to stick. It's not going to last at all. The self-etching primer has an acid in it that will rough up the metal as it covers it and promote adhesion. It is a very flat greenish olive drab color. But as I said, I'm going to be painting this with a flat black. So that's the next step. So the next step, which was painting the breech black, is complete. What I used was this Rust-Oleum camouflage black. It's an ultra black, extreme low sheen paint. It's really good. I'm almost out of it. Can's almost empty. I've used it for lots of different things, but it really gave it a dull, very flat black finish. I'm debating whether or not I should put a matte clear coat over it. Of course, any clear coat is going to give it some type of sheen and get rid of that ultra flat finish. But I am somewhat concerned, regardless of the fact that I use the etching primer, of how this is going to hold up and stay put. That's what I'm really concerned about as far as the black paint. So I'm going to make that decision, and there may be another step. There may not be. It's pretty much done if I'm just going to stick with the flat black. If I do use a matte clear coat, there will be, obviously, the step of applying the matte clear coat. But I will make that decision, and we'll pick up from there. The breech, brass breech preparation project before doing any installing of it is complete. What my decision was, as far as clear coating it, for protection purposes, for durability, not knowing how well the camo paint, the black flat camo paint, was going to hold up, even with the etching primer on there, I did go ahead and put a very light coat of matte clear on there. It did give it the shine that I knew it was going to give it, and really wasn't as pleased with that particular finish as I was with the flat black. So I let the clear dry and cure. I noticed on the instructions, drying time instructions for the clear, it did say that after 48 hours it could be top coated. Now, I went ahead and did another coat on top of the clear with the Rust-Oleum Camo Flat Black. Now, as I said, I was almost out, so was actually completely out. So I had to go buy another can, but pretty pleased with how it came out. It is a very dull, flat black, which, as far as using the gun and the color scheme of the gun and planning on squirrel hunting with the gun, that flat black I thought was really the way to go. So I'm just a matter of letting that cure, and I'm debating whether or not to go right into it as far as installing it on the KTHPA, or holding off till something shows me some type of reason to take off the plastic breech. So that's something I need to do some thinking about. But this concludes the video on preparing and modifying the brass breech for installation on the KTHPA. Guys, thanks for checking out the video. Stay safe and shoot safe. Happy Memorial Day. God bless all of those who gave their lives for our freedoms.